What's up, everyone? Welcome to another build series, Ultimate 3D Printing build series. This one, I've had in the works for a long time. I've had it done for a long time as far as the print wise. A lot of people have seen it at some toy shows that I brought it to. I've talked my friends and acquaintances and family's ears off about this project, and now I'm finally ready to present the documentation of this project. Everything from why, how, all every question to the reveal. So let's get into it. I'm ready to get into this. I'm ready to explain it all. I'm ready to dive into every aspect of this project, and hopefully, it'll inspire other people to tackle a build like this from scratch. Not always depending on other people's modeling, and maybe you can do your own. Right? How does this go from an idea in mind to something that you can't find on the internet to something that you want to produce yourself and print and have this awesome, amazing piece that you did, and then where it goes from there, right? That is exactly how and why I did this throne room, right? I mean, look behind me. I got all these action figures. I've got all these Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I've got all these displays and everything. But, to me, it's not enough, right? I live in that world where I'm a collector, but it's just now I don't want them to just be on a display by themselves. As awesome as it looks, in person, and the talking points that you can get when people come over, this something like this, putting them in an environment like this throne room, in this scale, that it's not out there, it's not been done before. That was a personal challenge, an exciting challenge that I wanted to do, and like every project, right? I just talked about it over with other fellow collectors, especially the Sarlacc crew, the podcast. Just kind of like, yeah, I'm going to do this throne room. I think it would be amazing. They're just like, just do it already. So that's basically what I did, right? I just approached it like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take my knowledge of 3D modeling and I'm going to just dive in. And I didn't, I mean, I have some training in 3D modeling, okay, but I'm nowhere near a professional. I don't know all of the shortcuts. I don't know all of the ins and outs. I know enough just to be dangerous in that field, right? And that's at the beginning, right? At the end of this, I know a hell of a lot more. I've come across things where it's like, oh my god, I can do a lot more things easier. I did it the hard way, but hey, that's how you learn, right? And so the next project and the projects that are precede this will be a little bit more complicated and everything else. But I'm jumping ahead on the on the creation of this itself. But I still want to dive into the why, right, a little bit. Again, it goes back to having that ultimate talking point, that ultimate showpiece in your own collection, and the challenge of doing something like this. Searching the internet, I found a few throne rooms out there. They were sized, everything, and scaled accordingly to a DTOF, an IKEA DTOF, or a small shelf or a small display. And I was like, okay, I can go that route. I can just take their files, print it, put my figures on there, and call it a day. But the more I've thought about it, I'm like, maybe I want a full scale, 1/12 scale, which is the 6-inch version of the action figure. So, 1/12 scale is what they are. I wanted a full throne room. I have almost a 360 view, a set piece, something that I can build and know they built this in life size scale and filmed on it. That was kind of like my goal in mind, to have something where um, this is more than just a display, right? This is a set piece for your action figures to live on, and it could be used for toy photography. It can be used for displays, modeling, museums, whatever. And I was like, okay, that's my goal in mind. That's my end game right here, is to create something that is a worthy of an ultimate build, right? Especially in this series, in this channel, my ultimate builds are life-size stuff, bigger than life. Taking something that's something everybody has for this scale and blow it up. Discover all the engineering and the modeling behind it. And that's the goal of that. It's something challenging, something where it's like someone could tell you that's impossible to do. Well, let's do it. Let's all do it together, right? That is the goal of this, and that's exactly why I did this throne room. The challenge and the education behind it. You do learn a hell of a lot. Well, anyway, that's the why I'm doing that, right? So, yeah, let's get into how I started. First things first, I just sat there and I watched Return of the Jedi, the throne room. I found over and over and over. I discovered there's not a lot of references on the internet as far as blueprints or any kind of photos that will teach me scale and size of parts and everything moving forward. There was nothing other than still frames, references on the internet, watching the movie itself, and kind of like open to interpretation, a lot of things, taking some liberties. My main goal was to be as screen accurate as possible. Um, I took very few liberties in the design of this thing, meaning if I saw a design, I modeled it. I didn't, even with the engineering parts, I struggled a lot of times trying to figure out what is behind or underneath and stuff like that. So I would consider this being a 95 to 97% screen accurate. And I challenge anybody who's seen this in life to try to find differences and discrepancies in it. Why I say like a couple, like the 3 to 5% that's not screen accurate is probably like underneath where the throne room sits, and there was some engineering there I couldn't figure out, so I just left it alone. But yeah, this it was it's awesome. I modeled this thing. I think I started over 3 or 4 times. I mean, almost to the point where I got it modeled, tore it all down because I found other references out there. I found other details. I'm like, I missed that. Okay, let's redo it. Let's do the window. Let's remodel all of these things, and do it right. Let's get it right. And it's okay to start over. As frustrating as it could be, and a little bit, time consuming. I've always had that, like, people are gonna see this. I need to do this right. So, first thing I did, pull down references, as many references as I could, and no matter what, I just typed in, Star Wars Emperor's Throne Room, final battle scene, Vader versus Luke, whatever it was, and I pulled down as many references as I can. And there's not a lot. Trust me, there's not a lot. There are other models out there, people who made for like the gaming industry and just maybe just renders that helped a little bit, but they weren't screen accurate. But I took in some knowledge of scale and positioning on certain aspects of the throne room. Okay, so with that, and then again, watching the movie over and over and over and pausing it. And it's funny. Here's a little tidbit. In dark scenes, like the throne room scene, I couldn't see anything underneath, right? I would pause it and go frame by frame until the lightsabers hit and it lit up the entire set for like a frame. And I, copied screen and used those references, because I was like, whoa, I can see the computer terminals, and found out a lot of things I had to start over on. But a little bit of a hint to try to like really nail down the screen accuracy of this model. yeah, so once I had a comfortable idea in my head how to start, like where to go, and it's like, okay, I understand the window, I understand the wall, I understand the platforms, the stairs, the computer terminals. Um, I was like, okay, where to start? How do I start this thing, right? So, good question. How to start? So, I took my figures and I had them here. I had the throne room. I had Luke Skywalker, and I found a scene where Luke Skywalker was standing by the window, and I go, okay, well, he's Mark Hamill is 5, whatever, and I kind of like went, okay, this line of the window starts at his eye line, and that's 5'8", and so I would just kind of take that, position it with my figures, and I would model the window first. The first thing I did was the inner window and that design, and looked at it and scaled it up to where I thought the figures looked identical to the actual actors and the movie itself. And then I just built off of that. I just took one area where I knew I can kind of like take a measurement, and I just built around it. And it worked, because all the other scenes that I did, like Luke on the stairs, Vader by the terminals, everything was matching very, very, very close. So that was one thing that I did, and it was eyeballing it, dude. It was just like I didn't have any dimensions, man. And this is a scale. This is a 1/12 scale, so I didn't have no dimensions. Just took references and built off of that. Yeah, yes, it's a lot. It's weird, but it works. Um, After that, so I just started going forward with it. I said with my limited modeling abilities, I started to become an engineer in ways of fitting pieces together. I'm doing this for 3D printing. So I know the final outcome. I don't want any supports. I want it as clean as possible. I want it to, I'm not painting it. Okay, so I can't just like, oh, well, I just, sand that off and paint it and be fine with it. My end goal was to take it off the printer, glue it in place, and leave it alone. So with that in mind, that's how I design pieces around this. Because I could have modeled the window as one piece or two pieces or pies or, half a pie and everything. But then I would need supports and I would need all these things. So I went with the approach of modeling the more pieces, like an actual model kit, like a garage kit, right? The more pieces, the better the details and the better the engineering is with this type of thing. So I had that in mind going forward too. So the window panels around the entire window, I think there's like 25 or 26 of them. I modeled one and then, did an array around it and printed every single one and inserted it and put it in its place. That was an awesome decision at the end because again, you could print that in one piece, but you're gonna have some problems with supports and overhangs and stuff. I just didn't want that. I wanted flat pieces and print it. So always keep that in mind when you're designing something. Are you going to sand this? Are you going to paint this? Are you going to just take it right off? Like I said, pristine. The pristine print, the better it is. That goes a long way. That attitude goes a long way, especially modeling. That's and engineering. How did these two, pieces form without magnets, without hardware, right? So everything in this build, zero hardware, zero magnets. It's just glue. It's just CA glue, super glue. So, and friction held. So two pieces, get the friction held, put them together, glue it, you're done. That was the goal in mind, and that's what I set out to do, and I accomplished it. 100% accomplished it. Other engineering parts was trying to come up with different connecting styles. The wall itself had these little tabs that I, had a negative and a positive, and you just insert the tabs for lining up, capabilities, and you just glue them in place and just go from there. Same thing with the stairs and the platforms, all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, it was cool. Got to learn a lot about the set itself and what actually it looked like, right? What it actually took to make. I didn't know that those two terminals on each side, they're floating under. There's no ground there. It's not touching the ground. It's just sandwiched in that first platform. So it's like something I didn't know until I went and modeled this. The stairs, especially the stairs. How was I supposed to model the stairs where I can, because again, I did a lot of the printing on my CR10s, which is only at 12, 11 and a half, 11 and a half build space, right? So I had to make sure, these 18-inch stairs that was 18-inch across, had to cut them, but had an engineering to where the seams kind of meet, and you know, just little things like that. And it helps you think about that stuff. It helps you think like, I want to design this and like I said, print it, put it in place. I know I'm on repeat on the modeling stage because I can't stress enough of how modeling to the end game, right? I've seen a lot of people model and they're like, that's the printer's problem, or that's just something that you have to figure out later. And then when you get to it, it just falls apart or it breaks and it cracks and it's just a nightmare. So a lot of these things need to be thought out prior. Instead of just having two pieces just joining in together with no connections and you can't get it 100% level or square, I mean, it defeats the purpose a lot of times. And I never said it's good. I don't like the words "it's good enough." I don't like that. It's got to be good. It's good, or you don't do it. That's just me. And again, this build shows that, right? So another big challenge was the floor, the size of this thing. So let me put it in perspective. After it was done, it's 31 inches wide, 31 inches tall, and 41 inches in length, right? And the floor was a 31 inch by 42 or 41 inch, rectangle. And how I designed it was a grid system. So there was 42 panels, okay, all gridded and stamped in. And then I printed the 42 panels of floor and it goes on top. Some of them have cutouts for the stairs and columns and the walls and all that stuff for it to secure. But it's a floating freeform floor system. And I designed it to it. You could take it apart, for moving it, abilities, or storage. You can take it apart in sections and rebuild it as needed. So, I hope I'm showing some good references here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Again, all about the modeling and all about the engineering. That's key. I know it's going to be transporting this thing. It wasn't just going to live in there. And if I wanted to move it, it wasn't going to break. I could take it apart, put it back together in no time, right? So that's the modeling aspect. Let's get into how I printed this thing. Okay, first and foremost on the printing. I apologize. I don't have a lot of footage. I don't have much footage of printing it, but I will say that everything that I did was, the orientation was perfect for what I needed it. What was touching the build plate was never going to be seen. It was just the way I designed things was going to take that. You just print it and it's ready to go. So on the printing aspect of it, I did it 100% on this machine right here. 100%. This machine printed this throne room. No issues, because I already had replaced the print head and all that stuff, but no issues. Everything fit perfectly. Everything. I mean, honestly, I didn't have to redo any part because I paid attention to the modeling. That's again, measure twice, cut once, right? So everything printed flawlessly. I'm a very stickler on warping issues, so a lot of the warping issues I had, it was just not existent because this machine was dialed in, But there's a lot of flat pieces on this model too, so there's potentially issues for warping, I'm saying all these things too for a purpose too, because I do want to make these files available. So I'm trying to give you every pointer when you're watching this to okay, these are the issues, or these are the things I don't have to think about or think about in the future. So I'm just, again, a little bit of pre-planning. The choice of filaments, what I used. And again, this is not sponsored. Nobody sponsored me. This is something I did on my own. Okay, and I'm going to talk about cost and timing here in a minute. But I chose Hatchbox filament, PLA filament, so this is purely PLA. Okay, I chose their metallic silver for the silver parts. I chose a gray, bluish gray for all the bluish gray parts, but it was almost a perfect imperial color, right? And then black for the computer terminals and black for the flooring. Now, the computer terminals, when you see it, you can see like designs aspect. Those are just labels, right? Those are my stand-in labels until I do something else. And I found out that label stock sticks to PLA pretty good. So a lot of future projects with just if I want a computer terminal, just print it on a label stock and put it on there. Getting ahead of myself. Sorry. But yeah, those three colors, black, blue gray, and silver on Hatchbox. I think I went through 15 rolls of filament. Okay. 15 rolls of filament. And I had a couple, it was like 14 and a half, but I say 15 total, right? I think the rough cost of the printing was around $250 worth of filament is what I was getting, $22 to $24 a roll, in that range, time wise. Now, I could do the math. I could sit there and when I do the files, when I make them available, I will have a huge PDF instruction booklet that comes across with a part list and everything. So it will tell you how long and what's the cost of each part. But I would say, I printed this thing roughly on and off for 3 months, just like when I had time, usually I was like, okay, I'll sit there on the weekend and pump out a bunch of parts, and I threw them all in a box. And then a couple weeks would go by sometimes. I'm going to get back to it and print it. I wasn't assembling anything till I was 100% done printing anything, because it's like it's one step at a time. I did not want to go backwards. I wanted to design it all and then print and then put it together. Instead of like just designing the wall, going back, and it had to be all done in steps like that. So I would say if I was doing it nonstop, you're probably looking about 3 weeks of printing. That's like having these things going 24/7. The longest print was like 17 hours. It was part of the wall, those big corner panels. I think they took like 17 hours. I did it at a 0.2 layer height, 15% infill. I don't think I did anything solid but the floors. The floors might be a solid print, but they're thin. They're like even a millimeter, if that. 10 millimeter, or yeah. It wasn't that much. Anyway, CR10s, they're not fast printers, but they're good quality printers, and that's what I was after. This thing on the new like Bamboo Lab and stuff, I'm sure I can cut that in half, and then the quality would be even better. Like because Bamboo Lab and on the new ones, these newer generation of printers do very, very good at eliminating print lines and all that stuff. So, yeah. So once everything was printed, I took a mental checklist and I did a bunch of fittings before I recorded anything and made sure I had all my pieces and my engineering was down. I went through a couple renditions of like how to fit the window panels in the circular rings as far as like the tolerances and how to friction hold it and then glue it in place. So again, no magnets, no hardware at all. There's not one screw in this whole thing. There's not one magnet in this thing. It's all friction held and glued. And yeah, so printing, again, I don't have footage on it because at the time I was just trying to get it done. And but when I do the 3 3/4 version, I'm going to record all that printing, because again, I want to do the 1/18 scale version of this. That gives me an opportunity to film more of the actual printing process of it. So yeah, so that's the printing. Okay, assembly. I did this in 5 big pieces. So I would assemble 5 separate pieces, and they would form the entire project itself. The wall and the window is one piece. The floor would be the second one. The upper platform, the middle platform, and the stairs. So all of these were being assembled as individuals and then put together as your final project. So I started with the window on the wall, okay? And of course, I wanted to start with this because it gives you that sense of accomplishment as what your goal is working towards. It's the most iconic window in Star Wars. And to have that first and put to the side and you can stare at it as I was assembling this thing was key. Was key for motivation to keep going. It took me a few days to put everything together. I didn't have really a direction other than, in my mind where I knew everything was going to go. So I kind of made up the steps as I went along, Yeah, I did add some inserts for pieces to put together, like on the window here. There's some for alignment issues, to put two pieces together, so there's not just a flat surface. And I also roughed up the edges too, where the glue would hit, so it was a little more porous, and the glue had somewhere to hold on to a lot more. PLA tends to print very smooth, and sometimes if you just hit it with just piece on piece, it could give you some issues later on. I also used some filament by itself too. I designed the right diameter, the 1.75 millimeter holes to go in there, and I used filament in each part so the parts would align when I glued them. It helped so much. I learned that trick from my R2 build series when a lot of it they use that kind of process. So I carried that over to this build also. Roughing up the edges again, making it porous. I think that is key for any two parts that go in together. CA glue is awesome for PLA plastic. I don't think you need any other kind of glue, epoxy or whatever. I mean, that you can use it, but CA glue dries faster and you're able to kind of move on at a rapid pace. When designing this again, thinking about assembly, it was all about how each piece is going to look like it's very detailed and everything. And sometimes if you model pieces together that will maybe save time in printing wise, might not look good in the overall finish. So I modeled more pieces than needed and separated a lot of those rings, like we're seeing here with these rings, and you stack them up to form the major ring where the window would sit in, just like this. And this was the toughest part of the build right here. It was because as I designed everything to go friction held inside those panels to those outer and inner rings, sometimes at tolerances, panels would pop up, so I had to use clamps to kind of put everything and hold it down. But I mean, once you had this point, this was cool. Again, probably my favorite part of this whole design was this window. Using the E6000 again, just for added support. Better to have it and not need it, rather than need it and not have it. Onto the wall again, using the tab inserts that I put into each section here for alignment. Just made it that much easier. 31 inches by 31 inches is the wall diameter here, and of course these pictures don't do it justice. And once you hold it up, you're like, oh my god, this thing is massive. But it should be, because 1/12 scale for the 6-inch action figures, it needs to be an actual set. Like, this is the movie set I'm building. That's how I approached it. Putting the details on the wall here was very satisfying. I actually did model some panels to get rid of those stepping issues that 3D printers have when you're trying to print an angle. Those are separate. I didn't show it here, but it's in the final assembly video and all that stuff. It's there. It's just it's not right here. But some of those added features that I felt it was important to do later on, and instead of trying to figure out how to print it smooth, I just added a different part. On to the upper platform. So the window is aside, and I'm staring at it all the time, going like, okay, I can't wait for this thing to be done. But the upper platform was the part. Now, the wall and the upper platform do not attach to each other. They're both attached to the floor. So it's basically the wall is free floating, and so is the platform. They're not touching. There's no support there. So that was something I had to learn while researching this thing too. But you can see here how I'm using the filament also for alignment issues. It helps. I have it. You have extra laying around. Never throw it away. Throw it in a drawer, and you can always use it for these purposes here. And get yourself some decent clamps. You can go to the Amazon and for a couple dollars and get those little plastic clamps. It's helpful. The floor, I did add a little tabs for alignment too. So the floor has the recesses and the The gray parts here have the little tabs, and they just fit right in there, so you have to just glue and snap it in place. The way this thing was designed, it wasn't going anywhere. Even if you hold it from one end, it's not going to snap, it's not going to break. Having many different tabs where everything slots into place, and the CA glue, and then I did add some E6000 also on that to really kind of bind everything together. Same thing with this middle platform, because this was going to be holding the terminals and also attached to the upper platform too. So it's going to have supports where it wouldn't sway or anything, but the same kind of concept. Each piece was tabbed in with filament for alignment, CA glue, and E6000 for added support. Let it dry overnight, and it was very sturdy. Same thing with the flooring. It was the tabs, alignment, everything, and it was good to go. I was worried about some weight issues on this because like those terminals aren't, the single thing is not that heavy, but I didn't want it to, like, if you bump a table it starts swaying. Finally at the final assembly, nothing was moving. It was very solid, so I was very pleased with that. But that's something that I didn't know until I was going to get this whole thing together. And I did have it in mind, like, okay, if I might have to redo some things, for structure and engineering wise, but luckily I didn't have any of those issues when putting it all together. The floor was awesome. I think the floor was kind of fun to do. Okay, the longest to print, the longest to design, but again, I wanted this thing to be able to disassemble and transport when needed. So I had a 42-piece grid system. So it was 42 pieces on the grid and 42 floor pieces that would just kind of, snap into place, all temporary. Now, there was little tabs here that held all the grid together, and each one had 4 different locations to tab in, but it worked really good. It was, again, working out the engineering for tolerances was key, but this is how I did the floor here. Also, there's also supports there for columns and the stairs and everything else. And you can see at the very right, there's a trough there that's where the wall is going to slot into place. Right there. It's the only way I knew how to do it because, again, the wall is a free flow. The only thing that's touching is the floor. So I had to make sure that it was high enough for that to slot in. The columns were easy. It was just a matter of not printing a whole column at once because there was overhangs and print issues. I didn't want that, so I separated them as best I could. And each one, like the small columns, had 5 or 6 pieces, and the bigger columns were only 2. And it was just easier to print and assemble that way. It looks fantastic. And the terminals were my favorite to model also because, again, very iconic. And I found out I got some regular label stock, made up a design, printed them out in label stock on an inkjet printer, and cut it out and just applied it to the PLA itself. I didn't sand anything, I didn't glue anything. They're not permanent, but they work, and they work really, really well. Therefore, you can get any kind of color you want. It's funny on the terminals, when I was talking to you guys about modeling these things and pausing it at a certain frame rate, you can see how the terminals aren't or purple. They're not purple in reality, but the movie and the lighting and the effects, everything else, made it look like they were glowing purple terminals. And that's my design choice that I made to make it look like it was at that moment of Return of the Jedi, not an actual representation of the terminals. So again, that was my choice. But again, I don't know if anybody else would have went the actual, color of that because it won't look right. And again, free floating, right? The terminal's just sandwiched right in place of that middle platform. I didn't glue anything, so I can take them apart and transport them when needed. The stairs were the final piece here after I got the wall in there and the 2 platforms connected with all the columns. The stairs were just basically a rail system that attached to the floor and the middle platform, and just glued in the steps. The longest pieces in this build too, I had to kind of separate them out, but um, did my best to try to hide any seam lines. When you hit it straight on, you can kind of tell, but when you had light lit up and everything, it all works. Those rails right there were fun to do. All 3D printed, designed in there, and yeah, I think the rails really tied in the entire build. I've got a lot of compliments. Like, look, man, what did it was those rail systems. So, yeah. So for such a big project, I rambled across. I just kind of did a speed round of why and how my approach was, and I know I missed a lot of things. So please let me know if you have any questions and stuff, so I can get detailed with this. I wish I could take this to more places and we could talk shop, because when I took it to Robo Toy Fest in Burbank, I spent 8 hours and all I did was talk because people had so many questions. Just the level of the scale of it, right? It fits the Black Series, the Star Wars Black Series figures. I mean, it's scaled for that, and nobody ever thought that this would be a thing, right? And that's the beautiful world about 3D printing. If you got the imagination, you got the time, and you want to put the time in there, and say you're gonna do something and do it, it doesn't always pan out. But when it starts to like kind of fit and things are falling in place, you got no choice but to finish and see it through, no matter what. And I loved talking about that. I loved how people saw it and was like, how does this work? And then I explain it to them, and it's like, all right, cool. So I see people's wheels turning, like they can do it too, right? It's like, okay, it's not that. I mean, it's not that complicated. It's just dedication. It's dedication on trying to figure out the program. The internet is beautiful about that. If there's a problem that you're trying to do in any kind of software, just Google it, YouTube it, whatever, and find out that particular tool, that particular direction, and apply it. And then you'll find out easier thing. You'll find better ways of doing it. You'll find easier ways, and like, man, I went around the hard way. If I showed you guys how I did things, I think a lot of professional 3D modelers would be like, 50 more steps that you needed to do. You could just press this button, click here, type this in there, and you have it done. Well, I'm learning, and that's the beauty about it, because in my next project, now I know I can do that, and albeit faster builds. But it's the end result. It's the end game. The journey is your own personal journey on these things. The end game is for your presentation. It's for your talking points. It's for your goal and your collection, or whatever you're doing these for. This is just a part of my world of action figures, and I wanted this as my centerpiece, right? And I want to expand on this throne room. I want to expand on other builds for the collection and stuff. But you need to apply everything moving forward on any project you do. Your journey is your learning journey, and it's not always the best way to do it, but as long as the end results are the same, so be it. It's about the end. It's about the final product. Same thing with this pitch weight. That's why I want to do so many more. I didn't design it. I took someone else's design, and I just learned a lot about printing and the weathering process and all that. That's another video series, the Ultimate Build series. There's a 4-part there. I suggest you go see it and check it out, because it was a lot of fun doing SD17 here. But something I did from the ground up means so much more to me that I actually accomplished something. A lot of my friends know me, where I start. I have like 75 projects, rising at one time, and a lot of it gets pushed back to the side because you get excited for something else, and that's just part of being chaotic, and but those projects, when they come to fruition, it's like, check that out, that's awesome, be proud of it, be proud of what you do. So again, my challenge to myself on this project was to, like, all right, from scratch, zero, I've got nothing. I pulled in nobody's references, as far as only movie stuff and still shots that I took or that I saw from the movie. and I just created a folder of things, and I just studied the hell out of what I was doing. And when I was studying it, I was studying angles. I was studying details that I know I need to put into this. I need to figure out how to put two pieces together. A free floating terminal. How is that going to work? And so that gets you. It puts you in a different state of mind of engineering or creating things to you know help you along the way that you can propel that to other projects. So yeah, so a lot of fun. What I want to do for this throne room, I already have plans. So the window, you see how the window is? It's air. It's nothing behind it. Well, I have already designed, and again, this will be in updates. That's why it's really cool to subscribe to the channel, because then you can see the progression of existing builds and new builds. But I have designed a wall system that's going to encompass the back of that window with some space, with also the ability to add fiber optics and hide all the wiring. It encloses that space. I can add lights into it, so I can light up from the outside of it that you will not see, but it's there, and you can light up the throne room itself. Add the fiber optics. It looks like the Battle of Endor is going off. Program that all. I've got it modeled. Stay tuned. That's going to be an update on the throne room coming here soon, and I will show you exactly how it's going to be fitted onto this piece. And again, my plan, my goal is to take these, create all the files, and let you guys print your own throne room in 1/12 scale, 1/18 scale. I haven't figured out the details on how to get all those things ready. I'm working on the instruction booklet, but again, thank you so much for even letting me ramble here and adding another ultimate build to this build series and on this channel. Stay tuned for a Star Destroyer bridge, perhaps. Maybe I'm thinking out loud. Maybe it's something that's already in the works. I don't know. These guys need some place to stay. I like it like this, like all jumbled, but at the same time, I love them in their environment. So the more I can do to my collection, the better it is. It's the talking points when people come over and see it. It's great. Cool world that we live in, that we actually get to do this. And what a world that 3D printing is affordable. It's in our lives. It's not going anywhere. Technology is not going anywhere. It's even getting better, more affordable. And, try something from the ground up at your hand. It's great to support people who do 3D models like I'm going to continue to support droid builders and use their files and document the builds going forward. But it's also 100% real and gratifying to create something from scratch where you have nothing, and like you look and go, how'd you do that? Well, I looked at a picture and I built it. That's when you want to see people like, what? Anyway. Yeah, so here it is, the ultimate builds Emperor's Throne Room from Star Wars Return of the Jedi, 1/12 scale. Perfect. It's a perfect set piece for toy photography, for displays, for the Star Wars Black Series, and there's room for expansion on it. There's room to grow on this concept and this throne room itself. So thank you guys. Until the next ultimate build, which I've got something ultimate going on. In fact, I gotta say ultimate builds going on. There's so much more, and the learning process is the trip, the reason why I'm doing this channel in the first place. But anyway, like and subscribe, hit that bell notification. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, if there's any comments, let's something that I did not cover and you wanted me to cover on this build or other future builds, let's set up. Well, the comment section is perfect for it, but maybe we could set up a live stream where we can talk it out, man. Talk even print settings or even like I told you guys, but with the warping issues, especially like this can have. Let's talk about it, how to get those prints perfect where no supports are needed, etc. I'll stop babbling here for a second. You guys have a good one. Stay safe and print something epic.